So in this tutorial, we're going to be starting the section on photo illustrations, and in this video I'm going to walk you through a transformation of our friend Brittany here, and along the way we're going to be using a lot of the tools in Photoshop that you'll use for your photo illustration. So what we're going to do first is we're going to come up to the top menu and click on Filter, and then come down and click on Liquify. That will bring up a new dialog. What this Liquify tool allows you to do is move around the pixels in the image as if it were sort of like wet paint. Okay. There are a number of tools over here on the left hand side that allow you to do different things. This first tool here, the warp tool, allows you to just click and drag almost as if you're smearing paint on a canvas. Okay, and you can change the brush size and the intensity over here on the right hand side. Alright. The next one that we're really interested in is this. It's called the pucker tool, and what that does is it sort of, it's almost as if you're pushing the canvas in, making things smaller. And the next one, the one that we're going to use right now, is called the bloat tool. Alright. And what that does is it sort of expands things. And then what we're going to do specifically here with Brittany is we're going to make her eyes a little bit bigger, almost like those greeting cards that you see with the animals whose eyes are really, really big. And we're going to do that with Brittany here. Make her eyes kind of big, a little bit bigger than they probably should be. What I'm also going to do here is I'm going to click on this warp tool, and I'm going to drag the corners of her eyes in just a little bit. I'm also going to bring the outside corners of her eyes up just a little. Maybe this eyebrow too. Okay, that's looking pretty good there. Just about where I want it to be. And next what we're going to do, while we're still in the Liquify area, is I'm going to, with this warp tool, I'm going to make the bottom of her nose skinnier. And a little bit flatter. And then with this bloat tool, I'm going to make the bridge of her nose bigger. Her nose is a little crooked. So what we've done here is made her eyes bigger and made her nose a little bit wider. And up near the bridge of her nose, I'm going to make it even a little bit bigger. Alright, good. So once we're done making the changes, we're going to come over here and click OK, and there we go. Okay, before, after. Before, after. Regular Brittany, Brett's Brittany. So here we are, and the next change that I want to make is we're going to change her eye color to yellow. So if we come down here to the bottom of the layers palette, click on that little cookie, and come up and make a new hue saturation adjustment layer. There's a function in the hue and saturation adjustment dialog. It's called colorize. Okay, and if you click on that, and what it's going to do is you're changing all of the colors to whatever hue you're looking for. So if you move the saturation up and then come over and move the hue down to somewhere around here, around yellow. Okay, so that's about the color that we're looking for her eyes. but I don't want to have to paint in the whole rest of her face. So what I'm going to do is click on that layer mask for that adjustment layer. I'm going to invert it so that right now anywhere in this mask that's black, the effect is not taking place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my brush, make sure that the foreground color is white, make sure that I click on my mask so that I am painting on the mask, make sure that I have a softer brush, okay, and then I'm just going to sort of very carefully paint in Brittany's eyes so that they are yellow. Get a little bit closer. Okay. So now we have our yellow-eyed Brittany. And the next thing that I want to do using the same kind of adjustment layer is I want to change her skin to blue. So I'm going to create a new hue and saturation adjustment layer. Again, click on colorize, move my saturation up, and then move my hue to a nice blue color. Now again, if you look over on the layers palette for this adjustment layer, you see that the effect is taking place everywhere. And the area that I don't want it to take place is relatively small. So it's easier for me to paint with the opposite color for that small change. So with my brush tool, I'm going to make sure that my foreground color is black. Come over and take that blue out of anywhere that I don't want it to be showing up. And now remember, you can hold down Shift as you're clicking to make sure that the brush tool picks up all the little areas in between. I'm also going to make sure that I get this little part of her eye. Get a little more realistic and creepy looking. Same thing over here. Certainly closer to Brittany than I am necessarily comfortable being, but for the sake of your amusement and education, I'll bite the bullet this time. Alright, so I want to make sure that I get all those little areas of blue out of there, and this is kind of what we're left with. Also be sure to paint the bottom left and right hand corners to keep her hair the correct color. Okay, so now what we're going to do is to work on the texture of Brittany's skin, which looks a little bit crunchy right now. And to do that, what we're going to do first is we're going to right click on the layer that has Brittany's face on it, select duplicate layer, and we'll call the new layer new skin. Now with this new layer selected, we're going to come up to filter, come down to blur, and then move down to surface blur. What we're going to do is have the radius around 50, and make sure the threshold is around 30. Okay, and what we're trying to do really is just to soften up her skin texture. Now you'll notice over here it's just one layer on top of the other. But what I want to make sure that I do is I don't want her eyes to be blurred. Anywhere where I want to keep that texture from underneath, I'm going to paint in. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on this new skin layer and then come down and click on add layer mask, which is sort of a rectangle with a white square in it. And just like an adjustment layer, I have a new mask now. So I'm going to make sure that my foreground color is black because I want to get rid of that change that I made. And anywhere where I want texture to remain, and that would be sort of her eye, her eyelashes, her eyelids. Okay, I'm going to paint with black so that that softening layer that we put in, that surface blur that we added, isn't going to affect the places that we still want texture. Another one of those places would be the lips and teeth, and also even just the bottom of the nose to make sure that we have some sort of reference, maybe even the eyebrows, and of course the hair. Okay, so now we have a much smoother looking skin surface. So we began with this. We changed her eyes to yellow. We then changed her skin to blue. And then we softened out her skin by adding a new layer and doing a surface blur. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to add some graphics to Brittany's face. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to add a new layer, because remember, we don't want to be painting on just anything. So I have a new layer here. I'm going to drag it up to the top so that it's on top of everything else. I'm going to come over and select my brush tool. Then I'm going to be sure that my foreground color is white. And I want my brush size to be somewhere around 35. And I'm going to start making some graphics here. And you can really do sort of whatever you want. And then what I'm going to do is come down here to the little effects button with this layer selected. I'm going to click on outer glow, and we're just going to use the yellow that's already selected. Change the spread and the size so that it has the feeling of glowing. Change the opacity just a little bit. And change the opacity of the whole layer. And finally, what I'm going to do is I want to bring out her lips a little bit and her teeth so she doesn't look frozen. And so what I'm going to do is come back to that blue layer mask, click on the layer mask itself. Again, my foreground color is black. And on this one, I want to bring my opacity down just a little bit so that as I'm making the change, it can be really kind of subtle. So maybe 20-25%, somewhere around there. Maybe just a little more on the edge. Whoop. And there we have Avatar Brittany.